Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and my guest today is retired pediatrician Dr. Albert Rick Kasuga. Dr. Kasuga had the fortune of being a pediatrician for 34 years until his retirement from the Peninsula Pediatric Medical Group in 2013. Later in his career, he especially enjoyed making house calls for the firstborn pediatric visit after discharge from the nursery. He also enjoyed volunteering as a pediatrician at the Samaritan House Free Clinic, co-leading a father's support group at the First Presbyterian Church of Burlingame, and being a pediatric consultant to a mother's support group at Mills Hospital. He is also on the board of the Burlingame Neighborhood Network, where one of his main roles is to arrange radio communications for the BNN annual disaster preparedness drill. This and plenty more are some of the reasons Dr. Kasuga was the recipient of the prestigious Burlingame Lions Club Citizen of the Year Award in 2023. And now my conversation with Dr. Albert Rick Kasuga. Dr. Kasuga, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How'd you like my intro? Did I miss anything on that? Did I get the dates correct? And
No, it made me look too good.
Well, I could have gone on longer, but if I had done that, we would have run out of time. Okay, so from here on out, do you mind if I just call you Rick?
Absolutely no problem.
And how did you get that nickname of Rick, I guess?
So my actual name, as you may not know actually, is Albert Rikio Kasuga. Rikio is my middle Japanese name. And when I was born, my dad liked the name Ricky. My mom liked the name Albert. And they had a back and forth, and my dad gave in. He said, okay, we'll call him Albert. But just because I was officially Albert, that didn't stop him from calling me Ricky.
Rick, and it came from Riccio.
It came from Riccio.
It almost sounds Italian, you know that?
Yeah, actually.
We could fake it, all right? All right. Typically, I open the show with a couple of fun facts, and you had a couple I thought were interesting, all right? You were born in Monterey, California. Your father taught Japanese at the Army Language School there?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. How did he land that job?
So during World War II, the Japanese Americans on the West Coast and other places were put into internment camps. And he was in Poston, Arizona. There were many internment camps around the country. He was in Poston, and he wanted out. And one way to get out was to join the Army. So about a year after being put into camp, he joined the Army and was sent to Minnesota, where the Military Intelligence Service was, Camp Savage, and he taught Japanese. That was his job. He was born here, but he grew up in Japan. His mom died in the flu in 1915 or 18, and he was sent to Japan to be raised by his relatives,
right?
Because his dad couldn't take care of him here. So he came back after completing high school in Japan, and so he was fluent in Japanese. And
yeah,
you know, that was just,
what age did he come back to the States from Japan?
Around 18.
About 18. Okay, and then he went into the camps at that time, or he was
no.
That was beyond.
Yes, that was beyond. Yeah.
So from there, he taught at Fort Ord. For how long?
Right. So what happened was, after the war, he kept that job as a civilian. The language school hired him to be a civilian instructor of Japanese.
Yeah.
After the war, and so that's what he was doing.
For how long?
About 10 years,
No kidding.
I'd say.
No kidding. So he retired after that, or what?
No, he changed jobs.
He did.
See,
did he stay in teaching at all? Or
No.
He, okay.
He went from teaching Japanese to business in New York City.
Good for him. And you were back there. You you were back there with him at that time, or was that he was?
So I left Monterey with my family when I was 8 years old to New York City, and so my initial experience of life was in Monterey until I was 8, and then I got the shock of living in New York City after living in a bucolic area for so long.
But you went to college back there, right?
Yes.
And you ended up going to Georgetown University. Yeah, have quite an education.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah. I really enjoyed med school. It was really a lot of fun. Yeah.
Even though you're a pediatrician, you're only going to get one question today about being a pediatrician, because this is all about a different subject today. That's why you're here. But so my other fun fact about you is you loved being a pediatrician. You did it for 38 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, 34.
34?
Oh, actually 35. But
okay. Yeah. All right. But that love ended when medicine adopted the electronic medical record, I guess it's called the EMR, and that sort of encouraged your retirement, okay? Why don't you tell us what the EMR is, and why did that encourage you to retire?
Okay, so I think has different acronyms now, but when I started learning about it and using it as electronic medical record, and basically it was an electronic digital way to capture an office visit. In the past, we would just write on a patient's chart, and we jot down notes about their problems, their concerns, what we found on our physical examination. We would just write it down in a paper chart. Electronic medical records became sort of the standard of how you document your visits.
Meaning you're going to use a computer or something?
Exactly.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So I'm not really good with computers or a keyboard, and I need it now rather than to write. I had to now type.
Yeah.
And I had a laptop that was immediately a barrier between me and my patient family, because it was in front of me.
Yeah.
So that I didn't like at all.
That was a turnoff right off the bat.
Right off the bat. It was hard for me to make a connection.
Yeah.
Harder. In addition, I had to type while I was trying to
engage.
Find out what's going on. And I was spending more time looking at my keyboard than I was
paying
at
attention.
my patient, as I was very easily able to do when I was writing.
Yeah.
So I would have to, at the end of the day, go back at home. I would go over every single patient, what I wrote, because I'd go, no, that's not what I meant to say, because I was typing as I was talking to the patient. I would correct my medical record. So that took another whole hour plus to go over every single patient, what I recorded, what I documented. And so it added a lot more to my day.
Yeah.
Plus, I noticed, go ahead.
So you were writing things down, then later on you had to put them into the computer. Is that what
No, I was writing it in the computer at the time, but I was not very good.
You went over your notes.
Exactly.
Got it.
And that just took additional time.
Yep.
And they meaning the electronic medical record folks, tried to make it easier by making templates so that you would be able to just use their template as to
fill in the blanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I found is I wasn't being honest.
Right.
What they filled in, they thought happened, because that's what usually happens. So I thought, I can't use this. So I would have to correct the templates that are supposed to save time. So with that, and it was not becoming fun.
Yeah. How long did that last before you said, I got to move on?
Probably 4 years, 3, 4 years, maybe longer actually.
Right.
Yeah, can't remember exactly, but
it was enough to
it was
drive you
enough
out.
to
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll move on from that. Okay, Doc, we'll move on from that. By the way, you mentioned to me off mic that you're a tennis player. You're not into the pickleball scene yet?
No, I just
You're a tennis,
I haven't.
You're a tennis purist.
Right.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
As long as I can.
Yeah. All right. So I brought you here today to talk about the Burlingame Neighborhood Network, which I know hardly anything about. Ray, who's doing the video today, knows something about it, but you know a little bit more about it because you're on the board and you have some things maybe you can share with us. So,
Sure.
For those of us listening and guys like myself, what is the Burlingame Neighborhood Network and how did it get started?
Okay, so it is an organization mainly to connect neighbors with one another. That was its main sort of mission, and it was started by Terry Nagel, who really felt it was important for neighbors to get to know one another.
It was like a social thing is what you're saying it started out as.
In the beginning,
Okay.
my understanding from talking to Terry is that, that's really, she wanted neighbors to get to know one another because she felt that was very important.
Right. Okay. And then it kind of evolved over the years?
Then it did evolve into an organization, it's nonprofit, by the way, that continues to encourage neighbors to get to know one another, to encourage neighborhoods to become active in disaster preparedness, and also to encourage neighbors to not only connect with one another, but to also get informed about disasters and disaster preparedness. And so those are our three main missions:
Right.
connection, connect, inform, and prepare.
Great. Okay. I'm just wondering, Burlingame has about 30,000 people that live here, right? With lots of neighborhoods. How do you define a neighborhood? What is a neighborhood? One block? 2 blocks?
So I would say for our drills, which is our main event for the year, a neighborhood would be usually 1 block. It occasionally goes beyond that to a contiguous block on the same street, but generally it's a fairly fixed area where we hold our drill.
Yeah. How long have you been a member?
Probably over 10 years, I'd say. I can't remember exactly, but I remember you had asked me that, and I was looking it up. But probably
at least 10 years.
At least 10 years,
Yeah.
probably 10 to 15 years, yes.
And what inspired you to join?
So at the time, initially I was the Burlingame CERT volunteer coordinator, and I thought it'd be great if CERT, Community Emergency Response Team folks, have a liaison with Burlingame Neighborhood Network.
Give me that. I'm sorry. Give me that again. What were you doing?
CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team.
Do we still have that?
Yes, we do.
Boy, there's a lot of things I don't even know about this.
Right.
Okay, this is good though. Okay, so you were on that, and then you got this sort of led to being on the
to
BNN.
be on the BNN board,
Yeah.
right, correct. And then we had an absolute wonderful board member. Actually, when I was not on the board, I took a break because of other things going on, and she unfortunately died totally unexpectedly in about 3 years ago. And so I came back on the board in a way in honor of her and to try to help the board out as well.
Yeah, that was
Suzanne Taddeocean.
Yeah,
correct.
right. I know Jeff. That was a real shock to everybody.
The whole community.
Yeah. So what's your current role with the network?
So as a board member, we each have interest areas, and my main interest is communication. I really feel that it's important that we have good means and tools for communication within a neighborhood, between neighborhoods, with the city. And so my main role is to facilitate communication, and that involves radio mainly. But this year, we're really encouraging the Zello app that you can download onto your cell phone. The Zello app allows your phone to become a walkie-talkie.
Really?
And it works very often when cell phones are not working because it uses a smaller bandwidth, a narrower bandwidth. And it's a tool that almost every Burlingame resident can use to communicate not only within their neighborhood, between neighborhoods, around the world. We have a BNN Zello net where we get together twice a month, and I could talk about that later. But one of our board members, I called and I asked, I go down a roster or a list of people, and I said, Beth, how are you doing this evening? And she said, oh, I'm fine. We're here in South Korea this evening.
Wow. So wait a minute. So that's different than a phone call. So how do they get a beep on the phone or something that you're beeping in?
So you would have this app on your phone.
Yeah. Is it a free app?
It's a free app.
Okay.
You turn it on, and if someone wants to contact you on our BNN Zello Net channel, they would just get on the channel, and if you have the BNN Zello Net channel turned on, you would be able to hear that person.
How's the clarity?
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. So the reason we are using that now is because though my first love is radio, and radio is still very important, walkie-talkies up to ham radios, and I'm a ham radio operator, and I really feel that, as you may have heard, ham radio operators are very often the only source of communication following a disaster. And so I think it's extremely important that we have multiple tools to use following a disaster, but at the end of the day, ham radio will be the last resort.
Right, the main tool.
Exactly.
Yeah, boy. All right, so Burlingame has 5 districts. Like I said, 30,000, population's 30,000. How does the BNN bring neighbors together in a small town where many people don't even know who lives next door? How does all that work?
Right. So as we mentioned, Connect is the first mission of BNN. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, we encourage connection by having neighborhoods have socials, maybe an ice cream party, maybe a cookie exchange, maybe as wine tasting within a block, just to get the neighborhoods to have a reason for a neighborhood to get together. We encourage that. We give tools for how to do that.
Yeah.
And we have mentors that'll go out to help to do that. But basically, we want to start there at a smaller place.
Is there like a block captain or something? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not even sure if we have somebody in my particular neighborhood. Mm-hmm. How would I find that out?
Right. So you would look in the Burlingame Neighborhood Network website, and you'll see a map. I think that was one of your questions.
That's where Know Your Neighbor's map comes
Exactly.
up. Okay.
So then you can find out which neighborhoods are involved in BNN, which have communication capabilities, which neighborhoods have...
Would it name who my block captain is? What do you call the person?
Yeah, the block lead. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Would it have the name of the person that would be my block lead, or how would I find that out?
Yeah, you would need to contact one of us because that's not on the map.
Right, okay.
So contact us on the BNN board, and we can give you that.
Would you say most neighborhoods are covered now, or there's still quite a bit of work to do? Okay.
Quite a bit of work, absolutely right.
Yeah.
We are always hoping to have more neighborhoods involved.
Okay. So the BNN, because I looked it up on the website, is known for its work in emergency preparedness, right? So what are some of the steps the organization encourages residents to take? You follow me there?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I can't stress this enough, but the first thing in terms of preparedness is connection and getting to know your neighbors. It's been shown over and over again that those communities that do well following a disaster are the ones that know their neighbors.
So are you saying, like, just go across the street, bang on the door and say, I'm Mark Lucchese, you are who? I live across the street. Thought we would introduce ourselves. Basic neighborly stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't need BNN to do that.
Right.
And if you do that on your own and you get your neighborhood on your own, you're 90% of the way there. To answer your question, for preparedness.
Right.
Because that is probably the key thing to do for preparedness. You know, you can get your supplies and your first aid kits and your flashlights and all that. Of course, this is what we recommend doing. Have a
go bag,
or a stay bag,
right?
And because you can do all that, and of course that's very important. But probably more important is what you just mentioned: going across the street, knocking on the door, say hi.
Yeah, very much like the fellow next door to me. He says, "Mark, I'm going on vacation for a week or two. Just keep an eye on the house." We do the same with him. Pretty simple stuff.
Absolutely.
Although I still have a lot of neighbors I still have to meet. So but that's a great suggestion. Just go do it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how does the BNM help neighborhoods organize for earthquakes and other natural disasters? I mean, are you guys out in the neighborhoods knocking on doors yourselves and talking about the BNN, or how does that work?
Well, we try to get people, and I'm so glad and I appreciate you asking me, actually, because we're trying to get the word out as much as possible that there is an organization that's there who has a commitment to trying to get neighbors together and to help them prepare. So what else do we do? Probably one of our main ways to get the word out is through our quarterly events. So every quarter we have an event where we invite anyone that's in Burlingame to attend a session where we usually inform them about disaster preparedness. Recently in February we had one about Zello and communication.
Where would you have this event?
It varies, but we have had them now mainly at the Burlingame Community Center.
Great.
If people sign up to receive a BNN newsletter, they'll get that information when our quarterly events are, what activities we're doing. And so that is a way, one, to get informed about disaster preparedness and also just about living in Burlingame. We recently had the police chief,
Mike Matucci.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had him give a talk about crime in Burlingame, just to get a sense of what happens in Burlingame in terms of crimes, what you can do to avoid it. We had the fire chief talk to us about what's involved in the fire department, and so it's not just about disaster preparedness, but that's a major focus, of course, of our quarterly events. And finally, we have our yearly disaster drill, where we actually practice what we would do following a disaster.
And you do that once a year?
Yes, we do that once a year.
And I think I saw on the website it's like September, October?
October 5th this year. It's usually 9 to 10:30 in the morning. We give lots of support to any block that was interested in doing that. We have materials for how to do the drill, how to perform the drill. We have a workshop before the drill where leaders or neighbors could come to attend to learn about what the drill is, how you do it. We have a communication workshop before that about how you will communicate with each other during the drill. So we really try to make it as easy as possible to do this.
How long would one of these drill events take? Like a couple of hours? Or is it half day or something?
So The actual drill hours are from 9 to 10:30, but an hour before you would do preparation, and then we would have many neighborhoods then talk about what worked well, what didn't work well, following the drill.
Do you get a pretty good turnout?
Well, yes, we had about 330 people last year participate in the drill
for the major one. The one that's pretty darn good.
That's our major event of the year, and that's about the number we have. That includes not only the neighborhood folks, but also the folks that I really have affinity for, and that's our ham radio operators.
Yeah,
and they help us out as well. And we have CERT trained folks that are involved, and they help us. So we have the fire department, police involved as well. So we have quite a few people.
That's terrific. Do you also post on the Burlingame e-newsletter that comes out on Thursdays if you're having an event? Do you use that as a tool for communication?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. And can kids come to these things, or are they just?
Yes. Oh no. Absolutely. They're very welcome to. In fact, we used to have kids in the neighborhoods be the runners to get information from people down the block to the. It's called the Incident Command Post, where the neighborhood lead would be. That would let the Incident Command Post or neighborhood lead know what's happening on the block.
Great information. This is good. Okay. So what's a common misconception people have about being prepared for emergencies?
So I would say that we are on our own, and that's what probably most people don't get.
That you don't have to be on your own. Or
one, that we are on our own, meaning many people in terms of misperception think that if you call 911, you're going to get help. That's true most times, but following a disaster, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So I think a misperception that people have is, I'll just call 911 when the earthquake happens, and they'll help me.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. In fact, for 3 to 5 to some people say 7 days, you're on your own.
There was an interesting article in the Daily Journal a couple of days ago about emergency preparedness, and it was saying don't rely just on 911 because, like you just said, it could be several days before somebody gets to you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly.
It's one thing if somebody slips and falls out in the front yard and there's no disaster, you just call 911, they get somebody out. But when it's the disaster time, everything shifts, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about for a moment how the BNN sort of responded to real world emergencies like power outages and the pandemic, recent storms. Were you guys involved in a lot of that going on?
Yeah, not as much for the recent storms when we had the terrific flooding a few years ago.
Yeah.
We received a call to help out with sandbag monitoring. And so we had BNN members and other community members and CERT members monitor and help out with the sandbag sites. For power outages, we now have our BNN ZeloNet channel where we encourage people to check in and ask, and just say how you're doing and if your power's out or not out, if you need help in any way. So we're encouraging people, and that involves not just your neighborhood, but throughout the city. Whoever is on the BNN ZeloNet channel may be able to help you during a power outage. We recently also had a fire up in Burlingame Hills, and people got on the BNN ZeloNet channel and said, I'm smelling smoke. Do anyone know what's going on?
Right.
There was recently a lockdown in Hillsborough and Burlingame for police action, and there were people on the BNN ZeloNet channel say, what's this all about?
And who's answering those questions? People like yourself and other ham operator. Somebody has to be fielding these things.
Yeah. So in terms of power outages, it could be anyone. Hey, we don't have power here. Do you guys have power? When did PG&E say when power is supposed to be restored? I don't have access to that information. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Okay, it's 2 hours for our area.
Yeah.
And what areas aren't involved, so it's not just ham radio operators. It's people that are tied into maybe some social media that I'm not tied into. So that it's folks that if we all have our eyes and ears open, we all can share that information. Which one person may not be able to access all that.
That's called Zello.
Mm-hmm. Zello, Zello app.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay.
And if anyone's would like more information, I refer them to our Burlingame Neighborhood Network website.
Yeah. Okay. So, Rick, I'm just wondering, we're talking about the neighborhoods and things like that and the BNN, and you mentioned a couple of social things maybe that could go on. You could have a wine tasting. This is to make people meet each other, right? Ice cream social, et cetera. So are there any surprising ways that being connected to your neighbors has improved people's lives outside of emergencies? Anybody start dating? Okay.
Right. So I'm sure that has happened, but I don't know of any specific one. Right. But I think you had mentioned that you talk to your neighbors when you're leaving and you're going to be out of town. And I think that gives you a whole lot of peace of mind. And I think that's very important. We help each other out in terms of getting rides to the airport.
Really?
Yeah. So if you instead of calling Uber, we can call our neighbors that we know very well, and if we become friends, and say, hey, we're leaving, and they very often they'll say, oh, okay, we'll keep an eye on your house, and do you need a ride?
Yeah, that's great.
So. And so there are very practical aspects. Right. I mean, it's very important to have some social connection. And so you say, what are the advantages? I think that it's more that our lives are better if we have social connection. I think that the Surgeon General last year came out with this problem with loneliness and how it affects our health adversely, and I think just by getting to know anyone, but specifically your neighbors that you can contact, and you can have a more facilitated connection, will improve your well-being. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be just for preparedness, or it could be just for life. Yeah. Just to have someone to talk to, and things are, whatever. I think I don't want to overdo this, but I think it is important to have social connection, and we don't often make that a priority in our lives. We think we're too busy.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of all living a little longer than people used to, and a spouse could pass on, and then all of a sudden our kids live miles away, sometimes in other states, and all of a sudden you're by yourself, right? It's a big change, and loneliness can set in, and it's okay to be alone, but lonely is a whole different ballgame.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all organizations have challenges one way or the other. What are some of the challenges that the BNN faces in getting people engaged or prepared?
Yeah, so I think the main challenge is time. We only have 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. So we make priorities. And if you're a young family, it's tough.
It is, because
it's tough.
You got them in school. After school, they're going to sports or music or drama.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is tough. Yeah. It is very hard.
That's one of the hardest things I think the service clubs are going through that right now, to recruit younger members to be Rotarians or Lions or things like that and having a tough time. Everybody's busy. The families are so much busier.
Exactly. So I think that time is the major challenge, and making it a priority is another challenge. People don't like to think about that this area is going to have an earthquake.
Right.
And there's a lot of denial.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen to us.
And so I think those are our major challenges.
Yeah.
And we just try to put it out there. Keep it in your mind that this is important, and maybe spend maybe instead of watching a movie or something,
Right.
just spend a little time about making connections and getting informed about disasters.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good. Thank you. So how does the BNN reach different age groups and communities within Burlingame? So does some parts of Burlingame have more of the Burlingame Neighborhood Network than others? Like, I don't know how to say it. I'll just use my neighborhood, Lion Hogan. You maybe don't know, but there has to be some that are really into it and some others that aren't, right? So how do you work that out so you get them more engaged? That's a challenge,
No,
right?
that's absolutely a challenge.
Yeah.
And you're right. There are some neighborhood areas that are more involved than others.
Yeah.
One of our failings, in a way, if I could say that, is that we're not able to engage the folks that live in condos and apartments.
Right.
And that's a huge, I think over half the population of
that's
Burlingame
that's what I
live
understand.
in apartments or condos.
Yeah.
And we really feel that's important.
Yeah.
And you asked me what a neighborhood is. I had that in my mind, but I didn't. I should have mentioned it then. That's a huge neighborhood. Is your condo or your apartment building, and so we're not exactly sure how to go about doing this, but it's so important for those folks, half the population, to get involved in terms of connecting and preparing.
Yeah.
So that is difficult. We are doing our best with advertising and getting the word out as best we can. We do have one condo building involved, a condo complex involved, and
That's
we're
good.
very glad for that, and that they're interested in doing that. We just like to have more involvement, and I'm not sure if it's what the major problem is, but it is something that we need to address further. As for age groups,
That's a
it
tough
tends
one.
to be more people who have more time. So very often it's usually the older folks that are retired and have more time to think about this and get involved. The younger one, it's a really good question. How do we capture more of the younger families?
It's the elderly homeowner, I guess. It would be easier to contact and get involved because they do have the time.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay. I'm just wondering, do other cities have networks like this? Does Millbrae or Hillsborough or San Mateo have something similar to this? And if so, do you share ideas with them? Does any of that come up?
Yes, Hillsborough Neighborhood Network is a very active neighborhood organization, and we have shared events, and we do share ideas.
Yeah.
Also, Millbrae has a CERT program. Burlingame has a CERT program. And Hillsborough has a CERT program. So we share ideas amongst the CERT members, and also that gets, because CERT is tied in with BNN in terms of sort of ideas about, or a mission to help with following disasters, that we share information that way as well. I think Burlingame is especially blessed to have both a strong Neighborhood Network, and also we are part of the CCFD, Central County Fire Department
Right.
CERT program, which includes Millbrae and Hillsborough.
Is CERT a national program?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And that's a nonprofit as well, I guess? Yeah, okay. Okay, we're getting towards the end, so how can people who are hearing about BNN, like a lot of our listeners today, for the first time, how do they get involved?
Okay. First off, go to our website,
Which is?
burlingamenetwork.org. And all that type of information, how to contact us, you will find there.
Yeah.
You'll find information about events, about the drill,
Yeah, you've got a great video on there.
and yes,
Going through the drill.
going through the drill.
Right.
Yes.
I thought it was pretty clever. It was very
Right.
good,
And that was
actually.
Suzanne's idea, and
Yeah.
she's
Oh,
the one that
was.
spearheaded that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you can also find the city map that you're talking about, where
Yes,
different.
city maps there, so you can find out which neighbors
Great.
are involved with it.
Okay, good. All right. Am I missing anything? Is there anything else you want to share? Remind anybody about?
So this is beyond BNN, but I think it's very important. I had mentioned CERT. It's a community emergency response team organization that's sponsored by CCFD, and its main goal is for training for disasters, emergencies, and it's a 20-hour course that teaches you about preparedness, about how to respond to fires in your own home, how to use a fire extinguisher, about there's 2 sessions on medical management, first aid, psychological preparedness following disasters, not necessarily preparedness, but about issues that may come up. So it involves and touches on many aspects of emergency preparedness and response. So I would encourage folks to look at CERT.
Okay, can I ask a question about that? I always save one dumb question for, Mark's dumb question time. Is that something you would do online, or is that something in person that you would go to one of the fire stations and do, or the community center? How does that work?
Sure.
That 20-hour course?
Yeah, so CCFD puts on a CERT course at least 3 times a year. And so you can go to the CCFD website and sign up for a CERT training.
Right.
And so that would be the best way.
Live
to
and
answer your
direct.
question. That's live and direct.
Wow, okay, cool.
But there also is an online course that
Really?
you can do as well.
Okay.
So that's a good resource.
Yeah.
I think it's better. You probably get more out of it if you did it online. But,
yeah.
But yes, you can do that as well. So I encourage people
Great.
to do CERT. You had asked about one other aspect, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned signing up for SMC Alert. This is an alert that is put out by the county. Other jurisdictions can also send an SMC alert, but San Mateo County Alert, where you will get notifications about any disaster, about any emergencies, and then simple things like road closures or a missing person. So I encourage people to sign up for alerts as well. SMC alert's probably the most important one.
Yeah, that would be great. What's your phone, screech or something when something comes on? Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. Okay. Boy, terrific. Anything else?
No, I think I appreciate this opportunity to be able to be here and encourage people to think about connecting with one another and the importance of it.
Yeah, terrific. Okay. I thank you very much, but before we go out, any shout-outs to family and friends? I know you're a father and a grandfather, right?
Yeah. So, yes. So, I really think most of my life has been luck. And some people that really know me know that I think that's the majority of why I am where I am. But along the way, I've had lots of help.
Yeah.
And that includes all my colleagues at BNN, at CERT, my friends, my tennis buddies. I mean, all that makes me who I am. And I think that's who I think about when I think about, that's why I am where I am right now.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm so blessed to be here with someplace and people that I had no control over. Now, we do have some control over our lives, but so much is beyond our lives. So yes, and I've had a lot of support, especially from my wife, who's been my partner through all this and has encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing, and so yeah.
Well, I'm going to thank you for your professional time. Your volunteerism is incredible. Like I said, if I named everything that you've been doing, we'd run out of time. But all of this results in Dr. Rick Kasuga being the 2023 Citizen of the Year. And thanks for being on the show today, Rick.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
I'd like to thank Dr. Albert Rick Kasuga for being my guest today on a Burlingame It's a Small Town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Before I close this episode, I'd like to read a short paragraph I took from the Daily Journal regarding emergency services. If you can commit to doing one thing to be better prepared for disasters today, go meet a neighbor you don't know, get their contact information, and check on them during a disaster. We would have a better community preparedness, response, and resiliency if we all did just this. The future of emergency management isn't about having all the answers. It's about building communities that are connected and able to be ready together. Thanks to my Minister of Podcasts, Mike Nagler, Executive Producer Shelby Lucchese, Director of Marketing Adrian Kwok Lucchese, video by the great Ray Tyler, and original music by Bray. This podcast was written and directed by Mark at the Mic and recorded on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025 at the Burlingame Public Library. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this program, and no part can be copied and replayed without the written consent of the Burlingame Historical Society. And so, until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.